All right, hola muchachos in Spanish 102. You guys are either wrapping up chapter 7 or you're starting chapter 8. And so you're really starting to get into the thick of things in terms of Spanish grammar and pronouns, right? When it comes to pronouns. You've already learned some pronouns. You've learned your subject pronouns, which you learned in Spanish 101. Reflexive pronouns, which you learned in chapter 5. Or 6, I think it was 6, chapter 6. And then in chapter 7, you were introduced to direct object pronouns. Chapter 8 is going to introduce indirect object pronouns, and then it's going to ask you to work with direct and indirect object pronouns together. So I have a couple of videos on that as well. But this right here is, if you look, this is the Pronombres chart. Pronombres is the word for pronouns in Spanish. And this chart is just going to help you take notes on the pronouns, kind of keep your pronouns in order, know which pronoun is which, and how to use it and when to use it. I have attached a blank copy of this chart to the bottom of this video. So I highly suggest what you do is you either open it in Word and fill it out as you watch this video, or print it if you can and fill it out with a pen or pencil as you watch this video. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with our subject pronouns. Remember, I told you these are the pronouns that you pretty much learned in Spanish 101. They're the very first pronouns you learn. And these are subjects of sentences. And what a pronoun does is that it essentially replaces a noun. Especially when we're talking about subjects, it's going to replace a proper noun, like a person's name. Okay? And so these were yo, remember, for I, tú for you. And then down here there was a lot. We had él, ella, and usted. Remember, there's the abbreviation for usted. And they kind of all go together. So it's he, she, and you formal. Okay? He, she, and you formal. Okay, and over here, that's your plural, that's your singular side of the chart. The singular side of your chart. And over here we have the nosotros and the nosotras. And down here we have the ellos, ellas, and the ustedes. So this is the plural side of the chart. So the nosotros and nosotras is we. And then the ellos and ellas is the they, and then the ustedes becomes the you all formal, or if you're in Latin America, it can be the y'all. So it's the you plural, formal and informal in Latin America. And so basically what these are is the subject of the sentence. So they're the subject. Let me get down to a better font here for us. These are subjects of the sentence and will dictate verb conjugation. Right? You're going to conjugate your verb based on one of these, the subject pronouns. Okay? Easy enough? Awesome. All right, let's go over here to reflexive. Reflexive pronouns. You guys learned these in chapter 6. If you remember, these are me, te, se, nos, and se. Okay? And these, right, if I come down here, undo. All right, let's get to a better font. I sure do miss my board. Okay, so when we get down here, these basically are actions. We use these, reflexives show action done to one's self, right? So it's pretty much if you can use the word self, right? If you did it to yourself, or he did it to himself, or she did it to herself, we are going to use one of the reflexive pronouns because it's reflecting the action back onto the subject, okay? So the pronoun, reflexive pronoun, matches the subject-verb conjugation. Which means basically, like, if it's me that did it, like if I'm washing my hands, then if I conjugated the verb as lavo, because I'm doing the washing, the yo form, then you have to also choose the yo form of the pronoun. And the yo form would be me. Me lavo. Now here's another thing. Las manos. Remember, manos are feminine. We don't know why, even though it ends in os. But I don't need to say me lavo mis manos, right? I don't use mis. It's just las. Because if I'm doing it to myself, they must be my hands. That's the thought process in Spanish. Okay? All right, so those are your reflexives. Okay? I'm going to try to pull some of this up here so we stay on one page. Okay. Then y'all went to chapter 7, and in chapter 7, the book introduced the direct object pronouns. So here are the direct object pronouns, and these are me, te, lo, and la, right? And lo and la, this is interesting. Lo and la can mean, basically these translate as he. It can be, I'm sorry, not he, him, because these are objects now, right? Or her. It can also translate as a singular you, right? If it's formal. And it can also be an it, one of our objects, okay? So if we have a singular object, and that singular object is what we did something to, and that singular object is masculine, we would replace it with a lo. If the singular object is feminine, we would replace it with a la. Okay? Make sense? Okay. Over here on the plural side, we have nos. And then over here, we have los and las. And los and las over here work very similarly to the lo and the la. It becomes them, right? Whether we have them masculine or them feminine, but it also becomes y'all, right? The plural you all. If we threw something to y'all, we did it. We saw y'all at the mall, and then it can be the plural its. These are plural objects. So if we read books, books are our object, right? Those are our direct object. Books are plural and masculine. So if we wanted to say we read them, we would say los. We would replace the books with los, okay? Now, the big question here is, though, how do we find a direct object? So you have to find the direct object. Basically, it answers the questions. It answers the question, who or what in relation to the verb, right? So basically, it receives the action of the verb. A direct object receives the action of the verb. So, for example, if I said, I threw the ball to Sally, you have to ask yourself, who or what did I throw? And it would be the ball. So that's my direct object, okay? So who or what did I throw? It's the ball. And what's receiving the action? What's being thrown? The ball. So you can see how that works. Okay, now over here in indirect object pronouns, this is what's going to be introduced at the beginning of chapter 8. We're going to go ahead and talk about this too. Go ahead and put them in here. Indirect object pronouns are me, te, le, nos, and les. Okay, now the big thing here is, how do we find an indirect object in a sentence? Okay, how do we do that? So down here, what you have to ask the question is, to whom or for whom. We're going to be very British and proper, because we shouldn't say, who's it for, or who's it to. You know, what's it to? I always do that all the time. It's very acceptable in American English, just like informally. You know, I always ask my husband, where's it at? And who's it for? And my husband, being a non-native English speaker who learned proper English grammar, is like, who's it for? You know, don't end your sentences in prepositions. So we're going to ask the British way. Okay, so pinkies up. To whom or for whom? Okay. And then we're going to ask that in relation to the direct object. Okay. So for example, in our sentence that I gave over here, I threw the ball to Sally, we're going to ask the question, to whom did I throw the ball? And so the answer is Sally. So Sally becomes the indirect object. Okay. And then since we look up here, may is me, te is you, lay is going to work for he, she, or you. And nos means us. Okay, right? These are objects, so it's us. And les means them. I'm sorry, lay is going to be, I threw it to her. I threw it to him. I threw it to her. Sorry, y'all. This staying at home's getting to me. Threw it to them, or I threw it to y'all, right? There we go. Okay, that's how it works. All right, so since Sally is a her, then once we use the indirect object pronoun with Sally, we're going to replace Sally with the indirect object pronoun. We're going to replace her with they. Okay. All right. So then we're going to start getting to the part where we use these pronouns kind of all together. So subject pronouns will always be in the sentence, or you can know who the subject is by the way you conjugate your verb. And then reflexives, well, here's your order. Let me put them. There's a specific order. Actually, I might make a second video for that. Let's do that. I'm going to pause this. Okay. Y'all get this written down, and then I'll come back with another video for the order. Okay.